Well, finally, let me say, as we go into this very special weekend, into Easter services, I know I speak on behalf of the President when I say how grateful we are to all of the churches that have been there, and their ministries have been working under great difficulty to continue to provide for the needs of your members. There have been food drives, there have been phone calls, and ministry has continued, and we are grateful for the role on this Holy Week that our churches, our synagogues, and all of our houses of worship have played. On their behalf, allow me to remind you that even if you're not in the pew this Easter Sunday, if you are able, it's still a good idea to give, because those ministries continue to go forward, and we encourage you. We encourage you to continue to support them. We also want to say very respectfully to all the church communities around this country and all the places of worship to continue to heed the guidelines issued in the President's coronavirus guidelines for America. We know it's difficult in this time of year, particularly, Mr. President, to avoid gatherings of more than 10, but we're grateful that so many churches, synagogues, and places of worship have done just that, and we urge you to continue to do it. And to my Christian brothers and sisters across the country, let me encourage you with the words. We should all remember that Jesus said, wherever two or more are gathered, there he is also. And so you can worship, you can celebrate Easter, and know that you'll be blessed in so doing, and you'll be serving the nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Great job, thank you. Okay, it's Good Friday, let's be nice. Okay, let's be real nice. Yeah, please. And I can tell you, Jerome has done a fantastic job, our Surgeon General. I just hope nobody steals him and he goes to one of these big companies for a fortune. Don't leave us, right? Don't leave us, Jerome, please. He's doing a great, you are happy, and you're doing a great job. And everybody tells me that too, so we appreciate it. Please.
Thank you. So Google and Apple have announced that they are jointly enabling contact tracing on their mobile phone operating systems. And I was wondering if this is something that you would consider, or maybe the doctors
Well,
would
that's
consider.
individual freedoms problems and a lot of other things. Is it something, we're going to look at it certainly, and we know they've done that, and it's it's very new technology. It's very interesting, but a lot of people worry about it in terms of a person's freedom. We're going to take a look at that, a very strong look at it. We'll let you know pretty soon.
And I have another
Brand
question.
new, yes, please.
So can you explain why it is appropriate in the middle of a pandemic to be talking about cutting or eliminating funding for the World Health Organization?
Well, we're going to talk about the WHO next week in great detail. I didn't want to do it today, Good Friday. I didn't want to do it before Easter. I also didn't want to do it before we have all the facts. But over the years, many years, we've been paying them from 300 to 500 and even more $1 million a year. China's been paying them less than 40 over the years. So we're paying them more than 10 times more than China. And they are very, very China-centric, as I said during the week, China-centric. China always seems to get the better of the argument, and I don't like that. I really don't like that. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's fair to the American people. And, you know, I tell that to President Xi. I tell that to Dr. Tedros. I spoke to him one time. I think he's a very nice man. I liked him. But we're going to be talking about that next week in great detail. We're looking at it very, very closely. We want to make sure money's properly spent. But again, why is the United States paying $500 million a year? It's a lot. And why is, okay, that's a lot. And why is China paying this year, $42 million, but generally under 40, so it's in the 30s. So we're at 500, 452, 400, 401, different amounts, different years. And they're at 40, 38, 36, 35, 32, 31. No, but you have to ask yourself that question. And then the answer always turns out to be in China's favor. Well, I have the same thing with the world trade. Isn't it interesting? World trade. So we have World Health and we have World Trade. So we have the World Trade Organization. And until I came along, we were losing cases, so many cases, it was ridiculous. We were always losing these cases, I mean, almost every case. And now we're winning cases. We just won $7 billion because they know I'm not going to put up with it. China has been unbelievably taken advantage of us and other countries. You know, for instance, they're considered a developing nation. I said, well, then make us a developing nation too. They get big advantages because they're a developing nation. India, a developing nation. The United States is the big developed nation. Well, we have plenty of development to do, okay? And now we're winning cases because they know that if we're not treated fairly, I'm going to pull out. Now, you never heard this before because nobody ever talked about the World Trade Organization, but the World Trade Organization has treated us very unfairly. But they know I'm not going to put up with it because all of these countries are taking advantage of the United States. Now, in the courts and the court system, we're not approving new judges over the last year and a half. We're not going to approve them. And Bob Lighthizer is working very hard on that. But we had always a minority position, meaning numbers of judges. So we'd have a minority number of judges. I said, how do you win with a minority number of judges? But all of a sudden we're winning. And the reason we're winning is they know if they don't treat us properly, and we won $7 billion just this very recently, and the money is pouring in. And we've won other cases too. We've won a lot of cases. But you know from covering it, I know you know, that the United States was taken advantage of by the World Trade Organization. And by the way, speaking of China, if you look at the history of China, it was only since they went into the World Trade Organization that they became a rocket ship with their economy. They were flatlined for years and years, frankly, for many, many decades. And it was only when they came into the World Trade Organization that they became a rocket ship because they took advantage of all the rules. I'm not even blaming them. I'm saying how stupid were the people that stood here and allowed it to happen. But we don't allow that to happen. And if they don't treat us fairly, we'll leave. But now we're starting to win cases. How about, I do say this, Jim, I want to get it open as soon as possible. This country was meant to be open and vibrant and great, not where people are, you know, staying and,
Are you
no,
determined to
I'm
do that
not,
first?
I would love to open it. I'm not determined anything. The facts are going to determine what I do. But we do want to get the country open, so important. So I'll have a task force, I'll have a council. It's going to be announced on Tuesday with names that you have a lot of respect for, a lot of great names, different businesses, different people. Top bipartisan. I didn't even ask. I mean, honestly, I think it's bipartisan. The one thing I didn't ask, are you Republican or a Democrat? Hard to believe, but I didn't ask. Well, up a few weeks ago, the deficit with the United States and China was coming way down. Nobody's seen that. Nobody's ever seen that before. But the deficit has come way down. So now we start a new chapter. And I can only tell you, if a smart person is standing where I'm standing, we're going to do very well with China. Okay? And I think it's, I have to also say this, I think our relationship and having the relationship I have with China is a good thing. But for the first time, we're benefiting instead of being the sucker that could, you know, that got taken advantage for years. Nobody. You know, I said to China, how did this ever happen? I got to know them very well. I said to them, representatives of China at the top level, you know who I'm talking about. I say, how did this ever happen? They looked at me and they said, but nobody ever called us. We didn't have a deal. It's not like we had a bad deal. We had worse. We didn't have any deal at all. So they just took advantage. Think of it, $500 billion a year deficit. Not 500 million's a lot of money, right? It's not, everyone thinks I made a mistake when I say 500 trillion. No, you mean 500 million. No, I said $500 billion a year deficit with China for a long time. But it was 200, it was 300, it was 400, it was 500, 556 billion, 507, $500 billion plus a year deficit with China. Now I'm charging them tariffs. And you know, it's very interesting. A lot of people that don't want to do that, they all agreed because China has taken advantage of this country like nobody has ever taken. We have built China with the money we gave them. Now, I give them a lot of credit, okay? I give them a lot of credit. They did it. But you know what? We made it a hell of a lot easier. We gave them a fortune. Well, the aid hasn't been given yet, but they will be asking, in my opinion. They haven't even asked yet. Boeing has not asked for aid yet, but I think they probably will. Now, at the same time, they do have to run a company. You know, this isn't a great time to sell airplanes. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? If you're a business person, Boeing makes airplanes. They had a big problem with one, but they make the greatest airplanes. They make the best airplanes in the world. They had the problem with one. They got it too complex. It becomes so complex. You have to be number one in your class at MIT to be able to fly it. It's a mistake. Every 2 years, they want to make it more and more. I mean, they had great success with the 737, the Boeing 737. Then all of a sudden, they do the MAX, and they say, let's make it more complicated. Let's put on different engines. Let's do this. Let's do that. It was not exactly a good decision. Bad decision. Very bad, horrible decision. Number one, human lives, and number two, horrible is what's happened to the company. Here's a company, from a business standpoint, was like probably the greatest company in the world, in my opinion. I think it amounts to 1% of GDP. Some people say it's a half. I think it's 1. But here's one of the greatest companies anywhere in the world, maybe the greatest. And boom. Now, on top of what happened there with the 2 planes, and they say they have that fixed. That's good. They say they have it fixed undisputably. In fact, somebody said, they gave me something. I said, you should say it that way. They said, sir, this is now the safest airplane in the air. I said, that's what you should say. That's a very good statement. It's the safest airplane in the air. That's a very good statement. You should use it. I said, by the way, you're changing the name? But whether you do or not, you should use that. But he said that. A Boeing person said to me, it's the safest airplane in the air. That's a great thing. But we know they're going to need help. Now, does that mean they're going to need help and they should keep people that they absolutely don't need? That business is a very cyclical business, like many businesses, frankly. So that determination hasn't made. They have not spoken to us yet. I think they will be. Maybe they won't need help. That'll be great. Look, Boeing made so much money. Who would have thought they could have made all of those planes that are parked all over the place? In many cases, I guess payments not made. But who would have thought they could do that and they're still a solvent company, okay? I mean, what a tragic thing happened in numerous ways, but also economically. So when they see us, making sure that Boeing is strong again is very, very powerful and very important, and we'll do whatever is necessary to do. Please.
Yeah, thank you. I have a quick one and then a longer one. First of all, have you had a chance...
Should we keep this going, everybody? Huh?
You're the president.
Jim wants to leave. No. Keep it going for a while, yes? I mean, we have time if you want. You're not going to criticize me that the conference was too long? You know, if I leave short, yesterday I left short. It was too short. If I stay too long, they say it was too long. Someday we're going to get it just right. Okay. Should we continue? Should we continue? Yes?
Well, at least answer my questions. Yeah.
Okay, let's, at least for your question.
Have you had a chance to speak
It's
to...
not a bad point.
Have you...
This morning, I'm looking at everything smooth, going down, topping out. Then you have this one spike in Denver. It's like, where did this come from? So we'll be looking at that, and we don't want cases like that happening. But this is the kind of thing can happen. This is very complex. This is a very brilliant enemy. You know, it's a brilliant enemy. They develop drugs like the antibiotics. You see it. Antibiotics used to solve every problem. Now one of the biggest problems the world has is the germ has gotten so brilliant that the antibiotic can't keep up with it. And they're constantly trying to come up with a new. People go to a hospital and they go for a heart operation. That's no problem, but they end up dying from problems. You know the problems I'm talking about. There's a whole genius to it. We're fighting, not only is it hidden, but it's very smart, okay? It's invisible, and it's hidden, but it's very smart. And you see that in a case like Denver. But, I think we're doing well, and they're on Denver like you wouldn't believe. I came in this morning, it was a flurry. I said, what's going on? They said, Denver. I said, what happened at Denver? Because Denver was doing pretty well. And they've got that under control. But yeah, that would be a case where you do some very big testing. Peter? All of a sudden, you use the term cold turkey. It's cold turkey. They go from that to having no money, and waiting for their checks, which are being processed very rapidly, but they have to go out and look for money. It's a terrible thing. All I say is, we love them, we're working so hard, and they're going to be back. And I hope they're going to be back even stronger than before.
Let me ask you about that if I can, just to follow up then. You chose not to do a national stay-at-home order. Now that you say you want to reopen parts of the economy, what authority do you have to do that? Isn't it ultimately up to the states to do that?
Yeah, no, it's really, the states can do things if they want. I can override it if I want. But the national stay-at-home, just so you understand, 95% of the country is stay-at-home. Like, as an example, I was speaking with the great governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, the other day. He has a stay-at-home. A lot of people didn't even know it, but he had a stay-at-home. Some people reported Texas wasn't. He had a very strong stay-at-home. 95 to 96%, South Carolina, as you know, has it, which at one point, a week ago, they didn't have. South Carolina, another great governor, McMaster. No, 95% of the country is covered. Now, the states that aren't, and again, constitutionally, from a federalist standpoint, if I thought there was a problem, if I saw a state with a problem, I would absolutely demand it. But they're doing great. And the states that aren't are states that have not had a big
Well, what
problem.
authority do you have to reopen right now? The same way that it's up to the states to shut it down, it's
Yeah.
up to them to
I
reopen. What
have,
authority
I
do you
have great authority if I want to use it. I would rather have the states use it. I would rather, and this is so shocking for me. A lot of people are saying, wow, he's really very reasoned, isn't he? A lot of people are shocked. They think I'd do it. I have absolute authority to use it. But so far, our relationship with governors and the job they're doing, I haven't had to do it. Would I do it if I saw a state that was out of control and they didn't have the stay-at-home policy? I would do it in a heartbeat. Jeff?
Mr. President, there's obviously a lot of interest in how you're going to make that decision. What
It's a very big decision.
what
I don't know that I've had a bigger decision than that when you think, right?
I
When you
would think-
I mean, think of that decision. Somebody said it's totally up to the president. I saw this morning. It's totally up, and it is. I don't know that I've had a bigger decision, but I'm going to surround myself with the greatest minds, not only the greatest minds, but the greatest minds in numerous different businesses, including the business of politics and reason. And we're going to make a decision, and hopefully it's going to be the right decision. I will say this, I want to get it open as soon as we can. We have to get our country open, Jeff.
you say, sir, what metrics you will use to make that decision?
The metrics right here. That's my metrics. That's all I can do. I can listen to 35 people. At the end, I've got to make a decision. And I didn't think of it until yesterday. I said, you know, this is a big decision. But I want to be guided. I'm going to be guided by them. I'm going to be guided by our vice president. I'm going to make a decision based on a lot of different opinions. Some will maybe disagree, and some I'd love to see it where they don't disagree. Will there be risks? There's always going to be a risk that something can flare up. There's always going to, look at what's happening where countries are trying to get open and there's a flare-up and they'll go. But I'd like the flare-up to be very localized so that we can control it from a local standpoint without having to close. There's always a risk. This is genius that we're fighting. You know, we're fighting this hidden enemy, which is genius, okay? It's genius. The way it's attacked so many countries at so many different angles. And I mean, you take a look at what's going on. And the greatest doctors in the world, I think they're close, by the way, but they haven't figured it out yet. Look what it's done to some people. I mean, some people it's grabbed, and it's a horrible way to go. You want to know the truth? It's a horrible, and then other people it hardly has an impact on. We talked about it. It's sniffles. It's less. They don't even know they had anything. And some people, I looked at New York this morning, and I look at what's happening and the amount of people that are dying, and dying, violently dying. It's a very tough adversary. But we're going to win, and we're going to win it. We're going to win it very decisively. I'm going to have to make a decision, and I only hope to God that it's the right decision. But I would say, without question, it's the biggest decision I've ever had to make. I think it's a very sad thing that happened. And I think if people knew, including the World Health Organization, and I do believe they knew, but they didn't want to tell the world. and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And we'll have reports on all of this, and we are not happy about it. But I wanted to leave the World Health for later, and I can tell you that we're constantly in touch with China. We're talking to China, and we've expressed how we felt. We're not happy about it. We're not happy about it at all, Kristen. Okay, one or two more? Yeah, Jim?
Mr. President, we hear from a lot of people who see these briefings as sort of happy talk briefings. And
No happy talk today.
you and some of the officials paint a rosy picture of what is happening around the country. If you look at some of these questions, do we have enough masks? No. Do we have enough tests? No. Do we have enough PPE? No.
Why would you say no?
Do we have
I think
enough medical
The answer is
equipment?
yes. I think the answer is yes. Who said no to that?
I'm saying this
No,
is.
no,
what-
you're saying no, but who
we
said
hear-
no?
we
But you
hear
asked me, do we
from-
have enough
We hear
masks?
from
Yes.
doctors, we hear from
No, no, you
health
didn't say
experts.
that. You said, do we have enough masks?
Does the country-
Yes.
does-
Do we have enough tests? Yes. Plus, we're developing new tests.
But they're not-
Do we have enough ventilators? Yes. Do we have enough hospital beds? Yes. We've built 20,000 hospital beds. We have enough hospital beds. Go ahead, Jim, let's go.
What do you say to, I mean, you watch the coverage.
You know what I
You're
say?
watching a lot of the coverage.
Well, a lot of it's
These
fake news.
doctors who- no, no,
A lot of it's
it's
fake
not-
news. A lot of it's fake news. Let me just
When
tell
the
you.
doctors
The-
and the
the
medical experts come
governors-
on our air
the
and
governors
say that we
reported-
don't have enough tests, we don't have enough
The governor,
masks.
yeah, depending on your air, they always say that, because otherwise you're not going to put them on. Let me just tell you something. The governors have said, last night, they had a group of governors, 14 governors, they were together someplace, and they said, it's been unbelievable what's happened. We've been totally responsive. Ventilators, everyone has the ventilators they need, to a point where we're getting calls from foreign countries saying, you have all the ventilators, can we get some? And we're going to try and help some of these countries. These people have done an incredible job. This is not happy talk. Maybe it's happy talk for you. It's not happy talk for me. We're talking about death. We're talking about the greatest economy in the world. One day I have to close it off. And we did the right thing, because maybe it would have been 2 million people died instead of whatever that final number will be, which could be 60, could be 70, could be 75, could be 55. Thousands of people have died. There's nothing happy about it, Jim. This is sad talk. This is the saddest, these are the saddest news conferences that I've ever had. I don't like doing them. You know why? Because I'm talking about death. I'm talking about taking the greatest economy ever created. We had the greatest numbers we've ever had in almost every aspect of economics, from employment to companies. Look at the airlines. They were having the best year. Now all of a sudden we have to save them. Okay? There's no happy talk, Jim. This is the real deal. And I've got to make the biggest decision of my life. And I've only started thinking about that. I mean, you know, I've made a lot of big decisions over my life. You understand that. This is by far the biggest decision of my life, because I have to say, okay, let's go. This is what we're going to
Doctors,
do.
when you have hospital administrators.
Sure. But you have many doctors that say, unbelievable job. I watched this morning, and I watched a certain network, and it wasn't Fox, and you had doctors saying that we've done an incredible job. You just read off these no, no, no. Well, we have ventilators, we have equipment, we have beds. How about beds? I mean, Governor Cuomo just told me a little while ago, he's got plenty of beds. In fact, they're having a hard time filling Javits Center. We built them 2,900 beds. So that's not a fair question.
When you're
Jim, look,
sanitizing
Jim,
masks and you're talking about reusing PPE, obviously you don't have enough.
No, excuse me. We have masks. We have everything. And we were trying to get ready for the surge. And a lot of people said it will never happen. Deborah said it. You'll never need that many beds. They said we needed 40,000 ventilators. 40,000. It's like building a car. 40,000 ventilators. People said, I felt it too. You'll never need that many. Guess what? We're the envy of the world in terms of ventilators. Germany would like some. France would like some. We're going to help countries out. Spain needs them desperately. Italy needs them desperately. Mexico needs them desperately. He asked me last night, would it be possible to get 10,000 ventilators? Within a short period of time, I'll be able to help out Mexico. No, Jim, just the opposite of your question. It's not no, no, no. It's yes, yes, yes. We're in great shape. And you know what? What's happening now is those numbers are horrible. But take a look at the number of beds. We have beds available all over New York. New York really being the epicenter. New York has experienced something that has been absolutely horrific. I saw Hart's Island yesterday. I saw those people being buried yesterday. Fortunately, we have the beds, and you can speak to Mayor de Blasio, you can speak to Governor Cuomo. People can't even believe the job we've done. They can't even believe it. And I give tremendous credit to the military. There's been a military operation with private people. Wait a minute, wait. I give tremendous credit to our military, to the Army Corps of Engineers, to FEMA, to these people. The job they've done is incredible. And you shouldn't be asking that kind of a question. Jim, honestly.
Had the country been better
Okay, look,
prepared
I really don't believe
at
you're
the
that bad a
onset of
guy.
this?
You shouldn't be asking that kind of a question. You should say, you know what? It's been really incredible what's been
That's the
happening.
reality.
Jim, nobody's asking. What governor, let me ask you this.
That's not enough
What
tests for everybody
governor,
around the country.
we have more tests than anybody in the world. We have every,
Enough for what's needed right
we have
now.
virtually every country in the world calling us, asking us, how do we get these tests that you have? Your testing is the best in the world. How do we get it? They've done a fantastic job. And when you ask a question like that, it's very insulting to a lot of great people. Okay, one more, please. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You may have seen how Sweden has responded to the pandemic. The schools are open, bars and restaurants are open.
Sweden's different.
Do you regret not following that approach? Is that approach working?
I think we could have
have
followed that approach. And if we did follow that approach, I think we might have 2 million people dead. And Sweden is having a lot of difficulty. You know, look, I'm very friendly with the leadership in Sweden. They took a different approach. They're a very disciplined country to start off with, but they did take a different. And, you know, other places tried it. UK tried it. The herd approach, okay? Herd. And they tried it. And you saw what happened in UK. It set them back a lot of time. It's been, you know, they're having a tough time. Other countries have tried it. And Sweden is suffering greatly. I mean, Sweden's suffering greatly. If we did the herd, if we went with the herd, as they say, we would have had potentially, I mean, you see the charts. Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know, fortunately, because we're going to be substantially less than the minimum. I certainly hope, unless something happens that would be tragic. So they had a minimum number. If we did, one of the reasons we're so far below that number is because nobody thought the American people could be so disciplined. Nobody thought it was possible. And I guess when they watched us up here every day and they watched other people and they listened to their representatives and governors, nobody thought that the American people could be so disciplined. They've been unbelievable. And because of that, so you have a minimum number of 100,000, and then you had the 2.2 number that if we did nothing, if we did just kept working, everybody go to work, people would be dropping dead on the subways. No. If we would have lost 1 million people, take the 2.2 million and cut it in half. Cut it in more than half. Make it 1 million people, okay? Now take that number and cut it in half. Make it 500,000 people. That's if we did nothing, right? It's unacceptable. It's too many people. So we spent more money on stimulus? Who cares by comparison? You take 2.2, you cut it in half, you cut it in half, you cut it in half, you keep cutting it in half. I don't care what number you choose. 500,000, 400,000. Well, we're going to have, we were talking 50, 60, 65, maybe. Maybe. But if we would have done what one country tried, and it has been very tough for them, you know that, very, very nasty, very tough. But if we would have done that here, and again, you got to remember, UK tried it. And I was a little surprised, and I watched it. They were going about, what, 2 weeks, and they said, we got to stop, because they were going to have a whole country infected. So with all of that being said, we got to get back to work. We got to get our country open. But we could have lost 2 million people. We could have lost 1 million people. We could have lost 500,000 people. If we would have lost 500,000 people, now I'll say this also, from the standpoint of being president and vice president, and we're up there and we're doing that herd and we're going to bullet through it, do you honestly think people like Jim and yourself and other people Jeff would have put up with it? as people are dying all over, they would have said, this man is crazy. Because the numbers, Tony, at a minimum, would have been many, many times greater than the numbers we're talking about. So I'm very honored by our decisions, all of us. We talk about it all the time. I said, you want to let him you just ride it. You just ride it right through. We would have lost potentially millions of people. No, it would have been unsustainable. It would have been impossible to do. And the American people have been so disciplined. It's been my honor to be their president. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it always. It's been my great honor to have been their president. And I have a big decision coming up. And I only hope to God that it's the right decision. But it'll be based on the input from a lot of very talented people, very smart people, and people that love our country. Thank you all very much.